Before the sun came up, the fire in a camp was not decoration or comfort. It was the first thing that decided whether the day would begin warm, cooked, safe and on time, or cold, hungry, and already behind. If the coals died, the whole morning changed because heat vanished, food stayed raw, predators got bolder, and the group lost the easiest advantage in the world, a living ember that could carry the night into daylight. That is why ancient humans did not just make fire. They learned how to guard it, feed it, and carry it through the dark hours when sleep wanted to win and the cold wanted a weak camp. In that sense, fire was not a moment. It was a schedule that shaped movement, rest, and the way a small group judged the hours before dawn. Someone had to stay awake a little longer, not because they were unlucky, but because the camp needed one pair of eyes on the glow under the ash, one pair of hands, and one mind that refused to drift. That task sounds small now, but it changed everything about human life because a steady hearth gave you warmth, light, protection, cooked food, and a reason for the whole group to gather in one place. Once fire entered daily life, the night stopped being empty and became managed time, with fuel to split, embers to cover, smoke to avoid, and decisions to make before exhaustion took over. You can hear the importance of that in the archaeological record, where the best sites do not just show burned things, they show repeated fire use, careful placement, and human routines built around the hearth. At Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, researchers such as Francesco Berna and Paul Goldberg found burned bone, ash, and heat-altered material deep inside the cave, not just near the entrance where a natural fire might have drifted in. That matters because the evidence suggests people were actively using fire inside a living space, which means the fire was being tended, protected, and brought into the center of human life. In other words, the cave was not just a place where fire happened, it was a place where fire was kept. At Gesher Benot Yaakov in Israel, Nama Goran Inbar and her team found repeated concentrations of burned flint, wood, and plant remains arranged in ways that point toward organized hearth use rather than a single lucky blaze. The pattern suggests choice, not accident, because people kept returning to the same fire spots and using them as anchors for cooking, warmth, and shared activity. A hearth like that is not just a campfire, it is a center of gravity that pulls food, people, and memory into the same place. Qesem Cave gives the story even more texture because Mina Weinstein-Evron and her colleagues found signs that people came back to the same hearth areas again and again, which is exactly what you would expect if fire management had become a normal part of life. Normal is the key word because when a task becomes normal, the group builds memory around it, and memory becomes skill, and skill becomes a way of surviving weather, darkness, and long waits between easy meals. Richard Wrangham has argued that cooking helped shape human bodies and social life, and whether you accept every part of his model or not, he is right that fire did much more than warm hands. Heat changed digestion, yes, but it also changed the rhythm of the day, because cooking meant planning, waiting, sharing, and returning to the same place when the coals were ready. It meant that the fire was not just inside the cave or the camp, the fire was inside the timing of the group itself, telling people when to gather, when to rest, and when to move. That is a subtle shift, but it is one of the biggest in human history because timing is where coordination begins. Now picture a cold night before dawn. The children are asleep in a tight cluster near the warmest stones. One adult is stirring ash with a stick, not to make a dramatic blaze, but to keep the embers alive under a lid of smoke and gray powder. Another person is splitting dry wood earlier than the rest of the camp wakes up because wet wood wastes time, makes too much smoke, and can ruin the start of the day. A third keeps watch on the wind because one bad gust can steal the heat, and one bad decision can turn tomorrow into a miserable restart. In that scene, fire is not a luxury or a symbol. It is a battery, a stove, a light, a wall, and a memory all at once. If you keep it alive, breakfast arrives faster, tools dry out, insects stay back, and the group can move at first light instead of wasting energy trying to start over. If you lose it, everyone feels the cost immediately because the camp has to rebuild warmth, food, and momentum from nothing. That is the real twist in this story. The great innovation was not only making fire, but building a culture around keeping it. Ancient humans were not simply fire makers. They were fire managers, fire guards, and fire planners, which means they were already practicing the kind of foresight that modern life still rewards. The campfire taught people how to think past the next minute, past the next meal, and even past their own fatigue, because a future ember was worth more than a present nap. Once you start organizing life around a future ember, you are already living in a more human world. And that is why this story still reaches you now, even through electricity and central heating. Your body still reacts to warmth, light, rhythm, and shared food, because those cues were shaped in a world where a successful night depended on whether somebody remembered to cover the coals. We have replaced hearths with switches and chargers, but the old logic is still there, hidden under the modern surface. You still feel the relief of a phone battery at 80%, a full tank of gas, or a pantry that is not empty, because your nervous system loves a resource that will still be there later. So the next time you see a fire glow in the dark, remember this: your ancestors did not just discover how to make it burn. That kind of watchfulness was not romantic, but it was deeply social, because one sleeping camp trusted one waking person to keep the night from slipping away. The ember under ash was a small thing to look at, yet it carried the weight of morning, breakfast, and the first movement of the day. Every dry stick split in the dark was a decision about future heat, future food, and future movement, all before anyone else opened their eyes. In that way, keeping fire alive was a lesson in trust, patience, and shared time that modern life still repeats in different forms. The camp survived because someone believed tomorrow deserved a flame. They discovered how to keep tomorrow from going cold.